I still remember the smell of rosemary and garlic clinging to my shirt. I just finished teaching a cooking class, my first one, actually. It had gone better than I'd hoped, the students were engaged, and one of them even asked if I'd do private lessons. I should have been floating on air. But the moment I opened the front door, something felt off. The lights were low. Music I didn't recognize thumped softly from the Bluetooth speaker on the kitchen counter. And then I heard it, a moan, low and muffled, coming from the very room where Elise and I used to cook side by side. I stepped into the kitchen. There she was. Elise. Bent backward across the marble island, the same place we'd once laughed over failed creme brulees and danced while stirring risotto. But now she wasn't laughing. She was gasping, her legs wrapped around a man I'd never seen before. He looked like he belonged in a cologne ad, shirtless, smug, hands right where mine used to be. The leather strap of my knife roll slipped from my fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. That knife roll was a gift from Elise last Christmas. She said it was a symbol of everything we were building together. The sound made her look over. "Jack," she whispered, scrambling off the counter, grabbing at the edge of the towel she'd clearly stopped caring about. The guy didn't flinch. Just pulled his jeans halfway up and muttered, "Didn't know this was your night, man. Your night." Like I just caught someone parking in my reserved spot, not sleeping with the woman I was supposed to marry in a room I had painted myself. What the hell is this? My voice was quiet, but I could feel it shaking. My eyes stayed locked on Elise, even as the guy finished dressing and grabbed his boots. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Then sighed like this was some chore she had to get through. "I've been seeing him for a while," she said, looking anywhere but at me. "Not just him. I mean different guys. Once a week, maybe? Sometimes less." The words didn't even sound real. My legs went numb. "I needed something," she continued, brushing hair out of her face like this was some therapy session. "Some spontaneity. Things with us, they've just felt so predictable lately. You're always working or cooking. I needed to feel alive." I stared at her. At the woman I'd asked to spend forever with. At the woman who'd cried when I carved our initials into the old butcher block table. Now she was here, calmly explaining how screwing strangers was her way of injecting life into her week. "You needed spontaneity," I repeated. She nodded like I was finally getting it. I didn't say anything else. I just picked up the knife roll, still sealed tight, and walked out the door. The last thing I heard before it clicked shut was the guy chuckling under his breath. Elise didn't laugh. But she didn't stop him either. The truck engine rattled like it might give out any second, but I didn't care. I didn't even know where I was going. I just drove, the backroads of Vermont blurring past in the dark, headlights slicing through pine trees and silence. It was early spring, the kind where snow still crusted the shoulders of the roads, refusing to die. The cab of the truck smelled like old takeout and sawdust, leftovers from a kitchen job I'd done for a neighbor. Normally I'd care. I'd crack a window, light a pine-scented air freshener. That night I let it fester. Elise had texted me 6 times. I didn't read a single one. I just watched the previews pop up on the cracked screen and swiped them away like flies. Each one made my chest tighten. "Jack, please? I didn't mean to hurt you. Can we talk?" I almost laughed at that one. Like talking would undo the image burned into my brain, Elise's breathy moan, her bare leg on the counter, his hand on her hip like he belonged there. And the worst part? The total absence of guilt in her voice when she said it had been happening once a week. The longer I drove, the more I remembered things I didn't want to. Her laugh echoing off the walls while we cooked. The way she used to steal bites of food from my cutting board. The day we burned a lemon tart and sat on the floor eating it with our fingers anyway. All of it kept circling like I was being haunted by a life that used to be mine. I ended up at a place I hadn't thought about in years, a little roadside tavern called Johnny's off Route 6. I used to work there as a line cook before I met Elise. Before I thought I had it figured out. The sign still buzzed faintly, half-lit. I parked the truck and sat for a moment, watching the fog roll across the windshield. Then I got out. Inside, it smelled like stale beer and old fry oil. It felt like a time capsule, same vinyl booths, same dull green walls, same bartender hunched over the counter polishing glasses that didn't need polishing. I slid into a booth in the back corner, the one near the window that used to leak when it rained. "Coffee," I told the waitress when she came by. Her name tag read Dana, and she looked about as tired as I felt. She brought over a mug filled with something that tasted vaguely like burnt wood and dishwater. I didn't care. I just held it between my hands and stared at the window, letting the heat bleed into my fingers. My phone buzzed again. I pulled it out, saw Elise's name, and without thinking, I held the power button until the screen went black. I wasn't ready to hear her excuses. Not now. Maybe not ever. The tavern was mostly empty. A couple of guys nursing beers at the bar, one woman playing solitaire at a table with a half-eaten burger. No one looked at me. I was just another ghost passing through. And for the first time that night, I let myself feel it, the full weight of everything I'd lost. Not just Elise. Not just the relationship. But the future I thought I was building. I took a sip of coffee and stared into the dark. I didn't cry. But my hands shook. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. Like the life I thought I had was just something I imagined, and now it was gone as easily as switching off a stove. I don't know what I expected when I walked back into the apartment 2 nights later. Maybe emptiness. Maybe Elisa's things gone. Maybe mine, boxed and tossed like trash. What I didn't expect was the smell of her perfume in the hallway and her shoes lined up by the door like nothing had changed. She was sitting on the edge of the couch, still wearing the oversized college hoodie she used to steal from my drawer. Her face was puffy, blotchy, like she hadn't slept. When I stepped in, she stood too fast, like she wasn't sure whether to come toward me or stay put. "Jack," she said, her voice shaking. "Thank God. I didn't know if you were coming back." I didn't answer. I shut the door, walked past her, and dropped my keys on the counter, the same counter where I found her legs wrapped around another man. She followed me into the kitchen. I didn't know how to fix this. I've just been sitting here, waiting. I thought maybe if you saw how sorry I am. I turned, my eyes locking on hers. "You're sorry." She nodded, swallowing. "Yes." "God, yes?" "For what?" I asked. "Be specific." She hesitated, blinked. "For hurting you. For breaking your trust. For what you saw." "No," I said, shaking my head. "Not what I saw. What you did. What you chose. Week after week." She looked like I'd slapped her. I know it was wrong." "Then why?" My voice cracked, and I hated that it did. "Why him? Why anyone? What the hell were you thinking?" Elise stepped closer. "I don't know. I was stupid. I got caught up in this idea that I was missing something. Like our life was too calm. Too safe. I wanted to feel something again." "You wanted to feel alive," I said. "You said that already." She stared at me. "I didn't mean to throw it all away. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Yeah?" I said, my voice colder than I felt. "You meant for it to go just far enough to keep it hidden. To get your little weekly thrill while I made dinner and folded your laundry." Her face crumpled. "I didn't plan it like that. But you kept doing it. That's planning. That's choosing." There was silence. She wrapped her arms around herself like it would hold her together. I missed the version of me that was fun. That felt wanted. I don't know when we became so routine. I leaned back against the fridge, arms crossed, pulse thudding behind my eyes. "Routine? You mean like sharing meals, building something real, talking about a wedding date?" She nodded slowly. "Yes." I laughed, bitter and empty. "You torched everything for a spark." "I didn't want to lose you," she whispered. "You already did," I said. She stepped closer again. "Jack, please. Don't throw away everything we've built." I shook my head. "You didn't build anything. You used it like a safety net while you played house with someone else." Her tears started again, quiet, steady. "Can't we go to counseling or something? Try to fix it." "There's nothing to fix," I said. "There's only what's broken. And you broke it." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her whole body trembled. "I don't regret loving you," I said. "But I regret thinking it was enough to keep you from doing what you did." She sobbed then. Hard. Ugly. I walked past her, heading toward the bedroom. "I'm taking the couch tonight," I said over my shoulder. "In the morning, I'll pack some stuff. You can keep the apartment." "Jack," she called after me. But I didn't turn around. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her crying in the next room. And I didn't feel comfort. Or guilt. Or pity. Just the icy stillness of knowing it was over. 3 days passed before I went back. I found a short-term sublet over in Bar, small, old, and drafty, but it gave me space. The kind Elise had once taken up without asking. I returned to the apartment just after noon, mostly because I needed my chef's jackets and the spare mixer I kept in the pantry. I wasn't expecting to see her again. Her suitcase sat by the door. I paused, fingers curling tighter around the keys in my hand. It was the same silver Samsonite I'd bought her 2 birthdays ago. She used it when we went to Cape Cod, when we visited my mom in Albany. The zipper was half undone, like she'd packed in a rush or changed her mind halfway through. The living room was empty. No notes. No Elise. Just silence and that faint scent of lavender detergent still clinging to the air. I bent to pick up a few things when my phone buzzed. "Troy, Elisa's cousin, we need to talk. Call me when you can." I hadn't spoken to Troy in months. We were never close, just exchanged nods at barbecues and smiled politely through family holidays. But something about that text made me stop. I called him. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, man," Troy said, voice tight. "I wasn't sure if you'd respond." "I almost didn't," I said honestly. "Yeah, I get it. Look, I'm not calling to defend her. What she did, there's no excuse. I just thought maybe you deserve some context." I sat on the arm of the couch, staring at the wall. "What kind of context?" Troy let out a slow breath. "I don't think Elise even knows how deep her issues go. You ever wonder why she never talks about her dad?" I didn't say anything. I had wondered. She always deflected. He was like a ghost, Troy continued. Around when he wanted to be. Then gone for months. Cheated on her mom all the time. Lied about everything. Elise watched her mom slowly collapse under the weight of it, and I think she learned early that feelings weren't safe. That pretending was. I swallowed hard. That doesn't excuse cheating. No, it doesn't. But it might explain why she chases moments instead of building something real. She thinks real means boring or dangerous. So she lights little fires just to see if anyone will come running. I stared at the suitcase by the door. "She never told me any of that," I muttered. "She doesn't tell anyone." "You were probably the closest she got to being honest. And that scared the hell out of her." I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because part of me wanted to hear this, wanted a reason to make sense of the wreckage. And the other part? The part that had stood in that kitchen watching my life unravel? That part didn't feel sympathy. It felt tired. "I appreciate the call," I said after a long pause. "But it's done. Whatever she's dealing with, it's hers now." Troy sighed. "I figured. Just thought you should know." We hung up. I didn't unpack anything. I just gathered my things, zipped up my own bag, and left the suitcase untouched by the door. It wasn't my job to carry her anymore. I wasn't looking for her. I swear I wasn't. But there she was, staring back at me from the screen, Elise, standing barefoot on a rocky beach somewhere with that same man beside her. The same one from my kitchen. The same one who mumbled a half-assed, "Sorry, bro," while zipping his jeans. She was smiling. Eyes closed. Arms outstretched like she was embracing the damn universe. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to break free to find your light. #healing, #freedom, #new chapter." I just stared. It wasn't the photo that got me. Or the #parade of self-discovery. It was the way she looked like she had rewritten the whole story in her head. There was no mention of the fiancé she'd betrayed. No trace of the life she demolished. Just a filtered image of a woman glowing in her own reinvention. As if she were the one who'd been trapped. As if I had been holding her back from this great liberation. The comments were worse. "You're glowing, girl. Proud of you for putting you first. This is what freedom looks like." I didn't feel angry. Not really. Not anymore. I felt clean. It was like seeing someone else's movie poster for a story I lived in real time and realizing I was never the hero in her version. I was just a plot device. A stepping stone on the way to her enlightenment. I closed the app, dropped my phone on the prep table at the restaurant, and looked around. It was late. Everyone had gone home. The place was quiet except for the steady hum of the walk-in fridge and the tick of the wall clock above the pass window. I walked to my station, pulled out a fresh cutting board, lined up my knives, and I started to prep onions, garlic, carrots, the base for a new soup I'd been experimenting with. I didn't rush. I didn't think about Elise. I didn't think about what she posted or what she deleted or who she tagged. I just cooked. Somewhere near the end, I wiped my hands, picked up my phone again, and snapped a photo of my station, clean mise en place, everything in order. The caption was simple. Turning the heat back up. For me. I didn't add hashtags. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't even check for likes. It wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. Not of her. Not of us. Of me. It had been a few weeks. Enough time for the texts to stop, for mutual friends to pick sides quietly without saying anything out loud. The silence suited me. I filled it with early mornings, double kitchen shifts, and late-night lifts at the gym that left my arms too sore to scroll through old photos. I was finally building something again, this time with knives, heat, and repetition. No distractions. No illusions. That night, the gym was almost empty. Just a few regulars and the buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. I just finished my last set when I saw her. Elise. She was standing by the lockers, hair pulled into a messy bun, eyes rimmed with something that looked like sleep deprivation or maybe guilt. She wore the same zip-up hoodie I once used as a pillow on long road trips. Her hands were tucked into her sleeves like a kid waiting for a punishment. "Jack," she said, like my name still belonged in her mouth. I grabbed my towel and slung it around my neck. "You shouldn't be here." I didn't know where else to go. There are plenty of places, I said, walking past her toward the exit. This just happens to be one I pay for. Wait, please. Her voice cracked. Just give me 5 minutes. I stopped at the door, arms crossed, heart annoyingly calm. Talk. She stepped forward, hesitant. I made a mistake. No kidding. I was scared, she said quickly. I know how that sounds, but I swear when things got serious between us, when we started talking long-term, it freaked me out. You were so steady. So sure. And I panicked. So you cheated. Repeatedly. I wasn't thinking. No, I said, voice sharp. You were thinking. You just didn't care. Not until the consequences showed up. Her eyes welled. I've missed you. No, you've missed what I gave you, stability, warmth, someone who made life easier. That's not true, she whispered. I love you. I laughed. It came out low and bitter. You don't even know what that means. Her voice rose. I was trying to feel something, Jack. Anything. I've been numb for so long. I shook my head. And you thought dragging a stranger into our kitchen would fix that? I didn't expect it to destroy everything. I thought I could handle it. But you couldn't, I said. Because you lit a match in a house made of drywood. She looked confused. I leaned in, lowering my voice. You wanted sparks? Congratulations. You burned everything down. Elise's lip quivered. I'm not asking you to forgive me tonight. I need you to understand. I do, I said. I understand perfectly. You were scared of a quiet life. Of being seen too clearly. So you ran toward chaos and convinced yourself it meant passion. Her eyes widened like she hadn't expected me to call it for what it was. I'm not your safety net, I continued. And I'm not your blank slate to scribble regrets onto. I didn't come here to beg, she said quietly. Good. Because even if you did, I wouldn't give you the ending you're hoping for. She stared at the floor. I ruined it. Yeah, I said. And you're still standing in the ashes wondering why the air smells like smoke. She looked up at me, tears slipping down her cheeks. I turned to leave. Goodbye, Elise. I didn't look back. Not even when I heard her sobbing behind me. Not even when she called my name one last time. I just walked out into the night. And for the first time in a long while, the air felt clean. The email came on a Sunday morning, tucked between a bank statement and a recipe newsletter I didn't remember subscribing to. The subject line read, if you'll read just one more thing from me. I almost deleted it on sight. Almost. But something made me click. It was long. Several pages of rambling apologies, fragmented thoughts, and carefully chosen phrases that sounded like they'd been rewritten a dozen times. It started with, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but please let me explain. She wrote about regret. About waking up every day with a tightness in her chest. About how the silence between us was louder than anything she'd expected. She said she was in therapy now, that Troy had told her what he said to me. That he was right. Then came the poetry. The metaphors. How losing me felt like losing sunlight in the middle of winter. How our kitchen had been her favorite room until she ruined it. She wrote, I thought I wanted freedom. But it turns out I just didn't know how to live inside something real. She talked about the affair like it was a wound she gave herself. A miscalculation. A failure of courage. And in a way, I believed her. She really did think she was chasing something meaningful. But none of it changed what happened. Toward the end, she wrote, if you never respond, I understand. I just needed to say it. I always loved you, Jack. I just didn't love myself enough to believe I deserved what we had. And then, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I stared at the screen for a long time. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just felt done. Like this letter wasn't a turning point, it was a bookend. I hit delete. No dramatic reply. No parting wisdom. Just a single keystroke and it was gone. Later that evening, I got a text from her. Just one line. I'll always care. I read it. Then blocked the number. Not out of cruelty. Out of necessity. That night, I stood in my new kitchen. It was smaller, older, with faded tiles and a flickering overhead light. But it was mine. No ghosts. No memories anchored to every countertop. I seared a steak, sautéed some mushrooms, and steamed asparagus just the way I liked. No recipes, no second opinions. No, are you sure you want garlic in that? From across the room. When everything was plated, I poured a glass of wine and sat at the little two-seater table by the window. For once, I didn't feel lonely. I felt still. I felt present. The fridge was bare except for one small sticky note I had scribbled in Sharpie and pinned up earlier that week. No more halfway love. No more fixing broken things that don't want to be whole. I ate slowly, each bite grounding me. Each quiet chew reminding me that sometimes survival looks like simplicity. Sometimes healing looks like dinner for one and peace that doesn't ask for permission. The days began to feel lighter. Not in any grand or cinematic way, there were no sudden breakthroughs, no epiphanies under a full moon, but in small, almost forgettable moments. The quiet after waking. The first sip of coffee. The comfort of knowing my phone wouldn't buzz with Elisa's name anymore. I started running in the mornings. Not to escape, not to prove anything. Just to feel my lungs stretch again. The air in Montpellier had that sharp, clean bite to it in early April. I'd run until my chest burned, then walk the last few blocks home past rows of sleepy houses with wind chimes clinking in the breeze. I tried baking sourdough. Failed. Twice. The first loaf didn't rise at all. The second turned into a hockey puck that nearly broke my knife. I laughed both times, not in frustration, but in a way that surprised me. Like I'd forgotten I could find humor in my own messes. That Sunday, I wandered into a little cafe downtown. It was the kind of place where the floor creaked with every step and the mugs didn't match. I grabbed a corner seat, ordered a black coffee, and pulled out a notepad. I'd been sketching ideas for the restaurant, seasonal dishes, plating concepts, maybe even a special for the summer menu. The place was half full. Quiet. Just the hum of low conversation and the clink of silverware. I didn't notice her at first, the woman across the room, until I heard her laugh. Not loud. Not performative. Just a soft chuckle to herself as she read something in a book. She looked up briefly, caught me watching, and gave the faintest, polite smile. Then went back to reading, still smiling to herself. I didn't get up. Didn't walk over. Didn't invent a reason to say hello. I just let it sit there. That flicker of something. Not attraction. Not even curiosity. Just the awareness that the world still held people who could laugh on their own. Who could sit in a cafe on a Sunday and smile at a sentence like it was a secret. I finished my coffee, tucked my notepad back into my coat, walked out into the cold spring air and stuffed my hands into my pockets. And as I headed down the street, there was no longing, no pain, just a subtle shift in my chest. A quiet knowing that maybe I wasn't waiting for someone else to fix the broken parts. Maybe I was just learning how to live with them. It was late. The city was settling into itself, porch lights glowing, windows drawn, cars hushed under the soft hum of night. I was home. Not the place I used to share with Elise. Not the apartment full of memories that stung when I touched them. This was new. Mine. One bedroom, modest kitchen, no crown molding or trendy finishes. But the oven worked. The knives were sharp. The quiet was my own. I stood at the counter with a fresh cut of halibut and a handful of thyme. No music, no distractions. Just the rhythm of cooking. Salt, sear, flip based. A pinch of lemon zest. The kind of thing I used to do to impress someone else. Now, I did it just because it felt good to take care of myself. When the pan hissed, I smiled. It had been a long time since the sound of oil meant comfort instead of chaos. I plated the dish carefully. White plate. Charred asparagus. Halibut resting perfectly on a bed of herbed lentils. A drizzle of brown butter across the top. It wasn't a celebration. It was a statement that I hadn't given up on who I was. That the man Elise left behind was still here, steady hands, steady heart, learning how to carry only his own weight. I sat at the table. One chair. One plate. One meal. And it was enough. Not the kind of enough I used to chase. Not the validation kind. Not the see how well I'm doing without you kind. Just peace. Halfway through I paused. Got up. Walked to the fridge. I pulled out a piece of scrap paper from under a magnet and wrote 2 lines in blocky, simple handwriting. I stayed. I rebuilt. I pinned it to the fridge with a dull souvenir magnet I didn't even remember buying. Then I stood there for a minute reading the words like they were meant for someone else. But they weren't. They were for me. For the man who didn't run from the ashes. Who didn't try to erase the past but learned how to stop bleeding from it. Who took the betrayal and let it hurt but didn't let it hollow him out. I turned off the lights, sat back down, and finished my dinner slowly. No music. No company. Just me. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like something was missing. I felt full. Support us by liking and subscribing to our channel.